Yo, GPT 5.6 just dropped. Fable 5 just got pulled, and we're still waiting for basically all of these super intelligence AI models to go live. And I want to take this time in this live stream to kind of think about, instead of venting and like going through all the different stuff and covering facts and everything that you'll probably see on YouTube already, I want to just have a different conversation here because I feel like, what do we do as people who are building software, who are engineers in this world, who are really trying to understand where this is going? Is this just one fancy marketing stamp between all of these different companies colliding together and some crazy conspiracy theory? Or is it just, I don't know. Like, I really just am open ended. And this is kind of why I wanted to do this live. This could have just been an easy pre-recorded video, and I just read to you some facts as far as what's going on with like Fable 5 and GPT 5.6 and all the different model breakdowns. But as of what we have right now, it's currently June 27th, Saturday, July 2026, and only 20 orgs have access to GPT 5.6. So that's really interesting. And, the government is involved to actually release this in the coming weeks. And there's a lot of really interesting numbers also behind that, right? Like terminal bench stuff, the cyber things, the bio stuff. And some of us even had the opportunity to play with Fable 5. And I was so intrigued by it, I actually even made a skill around some of the techniques I saw used there, and I call it wave engineering. I'll be showing you some little more stuff about that probably in a little bit. But also, because this is a live stream, feel free to drop any comments, and I'll just kind of slide them right in below, and then you can kind of hang out and stuff. If you want to engage with me, I also have a free community that I've opened up. It's called Start My AI. So rfer.me/startmyai. It's a school community that I've opened up. I want to just share everything that I do publicly. And one of the more recent things I've started to share live with you is because there's another question that we want to be asking ourselves. Is it worth going local right now as well? So there's a lot of conflicting information that I'm seeing across the board, and I have experience spinning up my own local stuff. So I did an in-depth review here, and I'm trying to figure out, like, do I spend a lot of time like crafting my own like super intelligence so I keep it to my own self? Or do I use the stuff from the labs and just pay a pretty penny and then watch the prices continue to go up? There is a lot of fear around this topic, so I don't want to approach this from a fear standpoint. And I kind of want to maybe think through this in first principles. So yeah, you'll see this just kind of be like a real like OG live stream here. So good morning, human. Yes, good morning, human. I really do appreciate you, Tech Friend, for showing up. So Tech Friend, if you haven't had a chance to follow him, he has a lot of really great stuff from TikTok to YouTube to on X as well, and always giving us a good experience here. So I have experience spinning up conflicting information. Yes. You can use already. No, I cannot. I don't have access to any of the models, and I don't think anyone. I think a few people are being able to test some of the models right now. So that's kind of what's going on. So as far as like what do we do, and what is, like, let's just say in the next 18 months, we're gonna have some amazing intelligence stuff. Like what we're seeing right now with Fable is that, in essence, some of the architecture that I see in Fable is able to take a broad sense of information and then try to distill it down and try to see, explore all these different areas of, what stuff needs to be implemented. So you can say implement a crazy game. It seems like the model can ask itself further questions and go into levels of detail that you would normally have to send with multiple chats and multiple prompts and multiple things like that. And so you're in essence just handing this stuff off to a tool, and then the tool is kind of doing those types of things to you. And what is currently being marketed as is what you're using on the website is basically the model. And kind of stepping back from that, I'm trying to think maybe in broader terms, like what if I was just a kid born today, and what if I just didn't really understand how all this technology worked? Because I like to do some of these exercises because it really kind of gets me thinking out of the box, and then thinking about, maybe instead of focusing on the fear of not being able to get something, or instead of focusing on trying to reproduce this stuff for models that may come 18 months from now on my local machine, what if a better use of my time was to maybe think about some really big, broad problems that I can solve for myself or my community? And then maybe that could be a much useful thing to do, And I think sometimes just being really blind and innocent can kind of make you solve problems that other people overlook because they are too focused on the fear part, right? So that's kind of what I want to open this live stream up, is just to maybe also invite you to feel that way too and think about things and not be so wrapped up in the fear part of it. And so for me and my mission, I'm actually on a mission to get down to 10% body fat. I've never done that in my life. I've never even saw my abs in my life, but I'm actually, intentionally focused this way. Uh, I'm obviously using some of the AI tools to help me do research and those types of things. And I'm trying to build some products and do some of that stuff live. But I'm also trying to build live with you too. So the other part of this is that I want to actually, I do these live streams so I can build live with you and kind of show you some of the techniques that I'm using for prompting and trying out the latest tools to see what we can do. I used to be an engineer at Apple, so I have had like a lot of engineering hands-on experience shipping software for big companies, but I've never really been able to do this stuff on my own, right? So that's a whole different journey that I'm basically learning from the ground up. I don't have an entrepreneurial family. I grew up super like, lower middle class. And so I didn't get shoes that I wanted. I didn't get clothes that I wanted. I think I had to work really, really hard and go through a lot of things, have multiple jobs and do stuff just to even make it in to get an opportunity to get the door to show someone, hey, I want to work for you, Apple. And they're like, what's your background? Dropping out of school was another crazy challenge too. And there's like all these different things, right? And I feel like if you're in the environment, if you're in the area and you're persistent enough, I think that's a really good motivator to then take that persistence and apply it to other things that have intelligence for us while we have them right now. And I think if I'm able to spend more time kind of locking in that way, then that's going to give me a better result if I just, go heads down and just kind of really focus on a problem that I really find to be very passionate about. And I think that also goes a long way. So yeah, big shout outs to Ed, everyone, group hug. Yeah, that's kind of why I think like, and this is why I feel like it's really important to like consume media and be around communities of people who are also on the like upward vibe. And if anyone is in the community and starts to like bring others down, you're basically just going to get kicked out. So that's what's up. The title caught my attention. What are we discussing today? So we're just basically discussing what problems should we start focusing on now instead of focusing on all the fear, instead of going down the different routes for maybe should I build local models? Should I do different things? If you're very passionate about certain aspects of certain things, obviously go pursue them. I'm not stopping you. But that's kind of, what it is. Obviously, there's also the big problem that people want to discuss. Like the main issue I see is how I democratize it because the intelligence cost is skyrocketing. So there are a couple of things, Gael, and this is kind of why I'm saying there's a small window right now. So in the next 18 months, right, as of now, you can spend, basically $200 a month and have a frontier level AI language model to use every month, right? You have usage limits and so forth, and you can get capped. And I think if you're trying to focus on improving yourself or leveling up to the next business, this is kind of where I'm focused on as well. And this is kind of why I wanted to have this like community and this discussion, because I'm not spending money on like Netflix subscriptions. I'm not spending money on any other subscriptions for things, other than stuff that's going to help me to try to utilize this intelligence. And, I think earlier on in my life, I would always then, like I would like sell everything just to buy a computer or something like that, or to buy an iPhone just so I can just hack it and play with it. And when I didn't have access to an iPhone, I would go to my friends who had access to an iPhone, and I would then like convince them to let me use it as much as possible. I mean, that's just where I was in my life, right? And then eventually I got to get a job like working inside of it so that I can actually, level up myself. So there's these different levels to it. And I don't know, like I feel like there's a lot that's kind of going on. And as humans, like who can tackle these large problems, like these machines are actually really, really good. So I want to quickly walk you through right now a lot of questions that people are having. Is going local worth it right now? And I think you only have to ask yourself, like the TLDR is basically, do you have data that genuinely cannot leave your hardware? Or are you running a heavy workload that requires many hours of work a day? And do you really want like the power and quiet of like a Mac cluster? Or do you just want to tinker and learn in this space? Because most of the times people have the hardware they need right now on their current machine, and they don't really have to go crazy buying all this crazy stuff with this crazy bet in the future. Because a lot of times if you focus, once you start going down this route of figuring out where you are, you'll start to figure out like it actually costs quite a bit, and you'll start to be limited by certain things. So once you answer those questions, I pretty much did a detailed write up. And a lot of times, if you want like a bigger model, you may not get the speed that you want, right? Or if you want to, if you like, for example, a DGX Spark, I have that and it's currently limited on the bandwidth, right? So I can't do a lot of requests per second, but I can load a big model just like I can with the M5 Max MacBook. But there's like sort of a cost difference. And if you wanted to load even bigger models, you start to kind of go down these routes pretty fast. And so I have a lot of experience in this because I've, trying to figure out, okay, which one, where do I spend a lot of time? The other part is that like, okay, once I get one card like this, then maybe I can stack them together. And then this is kind of where I started going down the other rabbit hole, is that I'm only slow as my weakest link. So even though I have two nice beefy cards that can deliver fast throughput, if they're only connected via the PCIe, which is basically the motherboard of the actual where the cards are connected to, then the speed is going to be much slower than I was even anticipating. And does it really help with parallelism? Does it help with all these different tasks? So this rabbit hole of like local AI, which I encourage people to go like look into, you can just start currently with whatever you have, whether it's your phone, whether it's a current machine, load a local model, do the prompting and stuff. But, in your next 18 months, figure out like, what do you want to do? Do you want to be a business person? Do you want to use this to enhance a role of what you're doing? Is it going to take over our jobs day to day? I actually don't think so. I think what a lot of these systems are doing is that they're taking a lot of the information that we've already put out there as humans and just connecting the dots for you with your own intents. And so typically to do that in the past, you would have to then like go to a library, pick up various books, synthesize the information, and then go reach out to those people in those industries or go fly over to them and go talk to them and say, hey, I want to make a new type of cloth or a new type of clothing or a new stitching pattern that I've researched, and I feel like this could be very viable. And then you'd have to convince like a venture capitalist to say, can you fund this venture? Because I have a prototype here that I'm showing you and it does this cool thing. Like when you pull it together, the stitching, when it gets tighter and it gets stronger, the more that you actually pull against it. So this can be used for boats and all types of things, right? So like that was like where we were historically, and like kind of where we are today is kind of a similar thing, but just accessible via a prompt. You know what I mean? And so there are things that you can pull into your exact environment and to the future and act on them right now. And there's other things that you can't. And so out of all the different energy, do you want to spend all your time right now focusing on all the fear and all the things that you aren't going to have and the fear of missing out for the next 18 months because you didn't buy the right hardware? And if like the difference between that and spending a bunch of money here and the difference between that same time investment, just kind of locking in for like 6 months, 8 months with some frontier level lab or a friend or a partner who has access to super intelligence, that'll get you pretty far pretty quickly. And there's a lot of people who have gone through like prompting and learning just like we have here. And this is kind of why I started the free community. So, I mean, feel free to check out, Start My AI. So this is rfer.me/startmyai. It's a free school community. I'm trying to put this together because I want all of us to come in here and help each other out. I don't want any negativity in terms of like bringing people down or doomerism and stuff. The goal of this whole thing is really just so that we can just share what we're working on. What are you doing? What are you struggling with? What is the thing that you need to take you to the next level? And that'll be kind of it. Because, I used to be an engineer. I'm trying to build for myself. And this is like, can I leverage some of the super intelligence to build the things that I'm doing? And I'm open sourcing pretty much everything. So if you haven't had a chance to, I've also made skill files and various things that I'm also sharing live with you. So on my GitHub as well. So if you go to, let's see, rayfernando.ai, I have a little Git thing. So this will take you to the GitHub. And so I'm sharing a lot of my skills live too. So as I'm building them live with you, I have like the QA skill that I use and the waves one. So this is the waves thing that we were talking about earlier. And this is a technique that I saw that Fable was using, where Fable would fan out a lot of things, and a lot of things I saw Cursor team using as well, which would be like parallel orchestration. So the difference between this and like what we have going on here is basically is around the verification side. So verification is a big moat for language models. And this is a thing that you can actually do as a human to kind of guide the model in a direction that's better, or make it work autonomously. So in this skill file that I have that you can start invoking, this is how you can get like a lot more intelligence from pretty much any model that you use, because it's going to send out and synthesize whether it needs to like actually narrow down some issues. A lot of people right now are into like loop engineering. So with loop engineering, what ends up happening is that you are like have to sort of understand the scope of your problem that you're working with, set some criteria that you want to be verified, and then just let it pretty much go into perpetuity. And so once you've set the criteria, that can be work really well. Where it starts to kind of get off the rails is if the criteria isn't that clear, and then some poison gets introduced into the criteria. So while you feel like you're climbing up the hill, you can just fall off a cliff pretty fast, because now you have some poison in that context, and then the language model will then use that as a confirmation bias, and so it'll actually start looping in reverse for you, and that's how you fall off the cliff. And so in order to do that, you kind of have to have a lot of clarity. And so my approach is to use this thing called waves, which is like send out an army of agents, but then everything that they do, everything's sort of treated as a claim. So everything that a language model brings back isn't necessarily the truth. I just say, you claim that this is what it is. Show me what your claim is and what we're working with. And then the actual person who, the agent that handed off the task, can then do the assessment and then figure out what does it need to do. Does it need to go send some judges at it? Does it need to then do some more research? Does it need to then synthesize some more information and have two agents kind of battle at each other with different, context windows and different, types of model parameters? This is like totally, a different way of looking at models, but I'm using the randomness of models in my favor in this way, because it's non-deterministic anyways, and we will eventually get there, if you know what I mean. So this is kind of why I thought, this is waves engineering, and if you haven't had a chance to check it out, check out rfer.me/skills. So this is also my school community for free. rfer.me/skills. So you can go ahead and check it out here. And yeah, this is my little my theory of kind of what I think this shape of like agents should look like. And I can kind of show you an example right now, because this is what I was using to debug a problem that I was working on, and I was able to generate a really nice, like, beautiful plan for this. So in here, what I did is I basically sent my waves. Let me just make this a little bit bigger for y'all, and then kind of close some of this here out so that you can see. So I just told it that I wanted to do a plan to investigate, to make sure that I can ship for iOS 26. And I have a little prototype app that I'll show you real quick that can do some transcription. So, hi, we are doing real-time transcription, and this is crazy how fast this thing is. This is my current app, and I'm planning to ship this to the App Store, but also give this to you guys as a preview for free. So this is all done. It's real time. And then we can also do some translation. So if I wanted to have it speak in a different language, I can also go ahead and do that. So for example, I could do it in Spanish. So as I'm speaking, it'll actually do all the audio in Spanish. Let me just turn down the audio over here so it does come through. Hi, how are you doing? Can you believe that I'm speaking in English? And this thing is actually putting stuff out in Spanish? This is all doing it in real time, which is kind of blowing my mind right now. Yeah, it's crazy how fast like you can do this stuff, and I had no clue this was even possible. Right? This is insane. Like, this is like, it's kind of wild that we can do this. I know it's like a really simple demo, but some of the simplest apps do really, really well on the App Store, especially if you're giving them to friends. Or I was using it yesterday to do this in Chinese. I was actually talking to people like about my gluten allergy, and I need to understand a certain thing. So they didn't understand English very well. I spoke English, and they just were able to read the text and hear it for themselves. And they're like, oh, yes. And then they can speak back in Chinese, and I could see it back in English, which was actually super useful. But these are really, really cool things that like are simple problems in our lives. But like, I have a need for this, and I look in the App Store, and a lot of the apps that I use aren't really that friendly or very useful, or they charge a crazy fee or something like that. So all I did was bring my own API key, and this is currently working. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of these types of problems in my life that aren't like requiring super intelligence, to be honest, but I'm still building with them. They're like my own problems. It just took several prompts to build. And this is kind of why I'm thinking like, hey, these are the types of things that we can just start building around us. It sounds really simple, and you're like, well, anyone can build that. Well, then why don't they? Right? Why don't you build it for your community and put it out there and tell people about it? Because I just showed like 3 of my friends, that were like above 60, and they're just like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." I don't you like they don't even know about it. So this is I was like, how many more people don't even know that these types of things are possible? And there's quite a lot, and there's quite a big market for this. Even if everyone's out there and there's like 10, 15, 20, 50 of them, people will buy because of you. And I think that's the bigger message here. It's like we can have the super intelligence in the world. It can build whatever we want. It will cost quite a bit of money, but the only difference is you, right? So you as a human, me as whoever I am, these people have this relationship because I've helped them over these many years. They're going to want to support me, right? So they're not going to want to support someone else down the street. At the end of the day, when you do make apps that you want to really scale much bigger, you're going to have to like obviously talk to more people and also make it work for them as well. So they're going to give you that feedback. And this is kind of what I'm learning right now. I'm learning to be an entrepreneur. So how do I go from my app being really cool for me to my friends? And then once that's kind of satisfied and they give me enough feedback, go out to a bigger audience, and talk about this live. So I feel like this is kind of where, I've seen some good examples of this, like my friend Max, he's doing this stuff at Canvas Dev. John's exactly talking about this. Glad you got to check out canvas.dev. I'm super bullish as I think canvases are the future. Yes. So there's stuff like that. There's people who are individual builders who are building, and this, is crazy amazing, right? So that's what's up. Let me catch up to some of the comments. I'm a little bit behind, so I just want to make sure I get to them. So the tokenomics of intelligence. Exactly. Yeah. Let's see. I use ChatGPT. Let me check my last prompt. I saw PewDiePie's video of him training a model, and I believe he was working with Quen model, but it seemed cool. Yeah, if that's another thing. If this type of stuff really interests you, definitely go check it out. I feel like, I'm not discouraging people from doing local. I'm just kind of trying to make a space for building. And I think like, what is the best use of my time right now? And what is the things that I need to do? Yeah. How was GPT 5.6 good at front end tastes? I don't have access to the model, and I think only 20 select partners or corporations have access to that. But yeah, that's what's up. NVIDIA devs impress me. I'm not able to do it, but watch early NVIDIA Jensen. Yeah, NVIDIA devs are absolutely incredible. Like they're so like smart, so into the technology, and these are the right people you want tackling these types of problems, and they are doing that, and they're actually open sourcing a lot of cool stuff. Like the Nemotron 3 Ultra is crazy work. And it's actually available in like the Droid harness you could just use. So you don't have to like try to load it in your own data center. And so it's already ready to go. And I think it's only like 0.5 credits, so that you can use it quite a bit. So I'm building a skincare app which analyzes the skin and suggests product according to skin condition. I have been implementing a lot of learnings from you. That's cool. Have you tried the Cerebrus model? Have you seen this? Oh, you guys got to see this demo. I gotta go though. I got one more minute. Okay. I definitely have to go, but I wanna just kind of catch up to the comments a little bit just before I bounce out, because that's what's up. Wheezy, what's going on? This is like my first comment from Twitch. It's been a while since I've had people actually comment from Twitch, so that's what's up. I'm trying to grow my Twitch audience in some ways, but I care more about YouTube and X right now. Yeah, because on Twitch, what sucks is you get a lot of ads, but on YouTube you don't, or like maybe you don't get as many, and then on X as well. Yeah, so like I think YouTube is kind of really where it's at. Are you reading the Twitch hack? Yeah, I got you, fam. I just read your chat. Yeah. Okay, so the Wave Engineering blog post is fire. It combines the best practices, top agent architectures, LLM strategies into a single agent stuff. Yes, I have a few notes. Please share them, Trencel. If you haven't seen this as well, he's pointing out my secret blog. And so my secret blog is, I guess you can call it my secret blog post, but I wrote up about Wave Engineering right here. And so this is kind of what I was talking to you a little bit earlier about waves. And then this is kind of how I prompt him. Like I basically tell them to do this type of task where I wanted to do an investigation and I want to ship my app to the App Store, or just not necessarily to the App Store, but I want to go into a plan mode and do this. So it did some synthesis and it basically spawns out. One of the things right now about the cursor plan is that the cursor one has like a really good multi-plan step type of thing. So it can spawn out these in concurrent, like in a concurrent fashion. And so you can see Composer 2.5 fast was used, and then GPT 5.5 was done for the shipping readiness part. And so as it synthesizes that information, it basically takes all that and comes back and then kind of gives me what we need to do. And it broke down all the stuff that I need to actually fix. And so it says, can you take these notes and help me produce a comprehensive plan that we can work from so that we can feed it to various agents to work on things sequentially or in parallel if needed, along with things that we expect to work from human testing perspective, or things that agents can verify against so that there's no bias, as the testing part will be done by another session, and agents should be expected to launch subagents without context injection so there's no confirmation bias. That's pretty much what I said. I said that over to Composer 2.5 Fast. And so Composer 2.5 Fast, or just Composer in general, generates phenomenal plans. So I use it for planning now. It is so good because it isn't overly descriptive like Opus is. And GPT 5.5 is good at generating plans, but it's not. I feel like Composer is the best balance of intelligence, but also having enough context so that the agents can build from them. So it was able to grab like some of the architecture baseline, as you can see, for our whole refactoring task, right? And it was able to understand quite a bit. I mean, I'm super impressed with Composer 2.5. This is a phenomenal, not only is the model fast, but it's really good at synthesizing and making plans. I can probably use it for the implementation, but I'm going to use GPT 5.5 and Opus 4.8 for the implementation parts. And it basically broke everything down in a whole dependency graph. So the dependency graph with WP7 and WP1, these are all the things that how the agents can actually approach this in these 8 different batches. So the first phase is going to actually implement these 9 different disjointed files. And then batch B is going to do the 2 where it merges them into one file. And you can see it's already planning for how to do this multi-agent orchestration workflow just within Composer 2.5, which is crazy, right? Like I would think this is like Opus level intelligence to me in terms of how I do planning. And I would never really do this type of implementation myself, but like I'm letting the agents really run with this here, right? So it breaks everything down, which is super like succinct, effective, and even links to the files. And so once I have this saved, all I have to do now isn't just launch into new chat, reference this plan, and just say, go ahead and finish this plan until it's done. And it will have everything it needs in here to spawn off all the different agents to do the work that it needs to do, whether it's in parallel, all the verification steps, and even all the little to-dos as well, so it stays on track. So whenever it launches into a new context window, with 1 million tokens, it'll take some of that work and start to basically do what it needs to do. And I'm going to use this along with Waves so that it finishes out and really completes everything and verifies it. Because verification here is going to be the more important part of actually doing that implementation. So thank you for your thought leadership. The larger AI community is truly impacted by it. So keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much, John. Yeah, I think it's much more productive right now to spend more time in focusing on building software with whatever we have. I'm like, obviously people are disappointed and it's disappointing news, obviously, but I think the more time I dwell on the disappointing part, the less opportunities that I don't want to miss these opportunities that are actually in front of me. And it's really easy to overlook them if I'm like too fearful or in a different state, not able to think clearly. So I'm into design model, which do you think is more capable, unique for common designer? I'm still creating AI blobs. You're like actually trying to make art with it, or you're trying to do code with it? Because they all kind of vary. But I would try some of the Chinese models, and I would also try the Opus model for that. Yeah, I'm also streaming on YouTube, which is probably a lot better than that. Yeah, definitely YouTube. Yeah, good afternoon. I was stuck on a project for 4 months, and I was saved by a Wave. Let's go. So yeah, a lot of people are doing Wave. A lot of people who got in the free community. It's totally free to join the Start My AI. I've been talking a little bit about this there, and so people have been cooking with this, so it's pretty fire. Howdy from southern Spain, what's going on? How do you handle the verification and routing parallel threads? So this is something that I'm still trying to tune, Trendstar, and this is something that would love your feedback on too. If you've been doing it and you find a technique, just let me know. So that's what's up. How to lock in. I'm a freshman year, learn C Python, a little bit of C, advice for beginners. I'm clueless and I don't know what to do. Wheezy right now, I think the best time right now is just to build software, try to understand them. If you are like just curious about learning and you're still in this learning phase, I would just say, take your favorite piece of software and literally just start testing it and trying to understand how did they build this, and then try to reproduce it yourself, right? Even if you use AI to help you reproduce it, the first important thing I think when you build software is to understand this way of thinking of like anything in the world, right? So if you look at a cup, how is this cup actually made? If you look at a piece of material, like what goes into this type of material, and what goes into this microphone? You're like, oh, there's a foam thing. Like, how do they make the foam? That's the curiosity that you need to kind of start driving you every day. That will then lead you to a lot of success in engineering, because a lot of success in engineering is looking at something and trying to decompose it in your head, and then trying to like reproduce it yourself. And once you understand the layers of things, then you'll better understand how some of the software is built. And when you understand how some of the software is built, then you'll understand how to debug it and how to like fix your issues as you go along the way. So it's a multi-step process. It's not like you can go in and deadlift 500 pounds the first day. It takes a lot of training and work and experience hands-on to really get a feel for things. So you can study that, which is one part of it. And then the actual practical part, the practitioner side, is a lot of where I come from, has a high value to time ratio. So when you spend time there, you definitely get a lot of value from it. Looks like my iPad just died. 10:05. I actually need to head out right now. So yeah, for those who are just kind of wondering, definitely check out the free school community. I didn't get to all the comments right now, but I want to try to see if I can do another live stream tomorrow. Maybe we'll get that on the books, because I'd love to chat with y'all some more, answer any questions that you guys may have. So as of now, I got to head on out. My computer's starting to flip out too, because I guess my iPad just panicked. And it just did a reset. All my screen stuff just went all over the place. So yeah, I appreciate it. However, good results using Hermes. I vibe coded my complete stack over last year, fixing bugs. Yeah, cool, man. But yeah, I have some more questions. Feel free to ask them in the free school community. Go ahead and join that if you haven't had a chance. The link's currently on the YouTube, rfer.me/startmyai. Sign up, it's free. Ask some questions on there, get started, chat with some of the community folks there. Get us going. And I feel like this is going to be a really awesome community. If you click this, I feel like you're probably, the algorithm has chosen you because you're kind of on this wavelength. You want to focus and not be on the fear tip, but you actually want to do some action. And a lot of people in that community right now are all about action, outputting stuff, and kind of really participating. So encouraging more folks to go there. I will be on a live stream tomorrow, and then I'm working to see if I can get into the AI Engineer event taking place on Monday, so I can do a real live stream in person, walking around talking to about over 6,000 AI engineers who are going to be all in San Francisco this coming week, with lots of events and lots of cool stuff. So a lot of cool stuff coming up. Definitely stay tuned. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe, go ahead and do that. And I will catch you soon. Peace out, y'all.